So here we are in not in rainy season, but in dry season here. And I don't know if I have internet. So we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, what I'm going to do is what I usually do. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to shut it down and upload a video. Okay. So today I have a lot of things to talk about. Hey, Archie. I have a lot of stuff to talk about, and I have the world's runniest nose. Please excuse me. Um, Allergy season is here with dry season. Sometimes I get it crazy, like I'm getting it right now. And it's kind of a pain in the butt. We're in this season where it's super hot, it's super dry. I've got asthmatic dermatitis happening and all that. Hey, Rena. So bear with me. If you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Tinkamar. Used to, oh, thank you, Archie. Hey, Grace. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering for a place called Pathos. It was all about the evangelical quiverful movement. I have an upcoming book coming out about the stupid movement. And these are just my opinions. Don't bully anybody. That kind of takes care of it all this morning. So I thought it was really curious the other day that here we had Dear Katherine and her biggest topic, the Duggars. And there was big Duggar news happening, and she wasn't on top of it. It was the tragic news that Jessa Duggar Seewald had lost a child. I think it was around 10 weeks. She'd lost a pregnancy. So, sorry, this is just driving me nuts. So she's lost this child at 10 weeks. This happened over the holiday season, which I can tell you after I pop another pill. I can tell you that is possibly the worst time. I had myself, when I was part of the Quiver movement, I had a huge pile of miscarriages. I've talked about this before here. Huge pile. I kept trying to have another baby because my youngest had problems with her immune system, and I was told have another child, bank the cord blood. And so we were trying to do that, not only because our religion was telling us to do this, but because everybody and their brother was saying, do this. One of my miscarriages I had on Christmas Day. And I can't even begin to explain to you how bad it was. It was right around the same time that Jessa was having hers. I think it was 9 or 10 weeks, somewhere around there. And of all the places I can think of, hey, Cynthia, to be Christine and Lorna, of all the places I can think about being for Christmas, a hospital is the most miserable one. Everybody there was cranky and bent out of shape. Every doctor, every nurse. It was a really bad experience for us. One of the worst, and it was the last one, the last miscarriage of my giant pile of them. When I ended up having my hysterectomy, my doctor said he wasn't sure how I had the kids I had because I had such vast amounts of endometriosis, tissues just everywhere, and things wrong with that part of my body. So one of the things, hey, Shelley, one of the things that, hey, Cindy, I didn't realize it was you at first. I was just so, Cynthia. One of the things that happened was I used to have routine D&Cs. I mean, it's every 6 months or so. And we're not even talking about after having had a miscarriage. We're talking about just having to have a routine D&C because you can't stop bleeding. I had one of those every 6 months for years. So in trusts Katie Joy, who's now trying to, her and her fangirls are trying to say that Jessa Duggar had the most dreaded of A words in evangelical town, the ABORTION word that I'm not even going to say it because YouTube has just been so incredibly stupid lately about all the words that you can and cannot say. If they think you're going to talk about something that is halfway controversial, they'll give you a hard, hard time. 3 yourself. One was missed and I went septic, was hospitalized for 2 weeks and almost died. Grace, that is why I was opposed to some of the laws they're trying to make and why I want this procedure to still be taught in medical schools. It's not just for that. It's not just for the dreaded A word. Those of us that have problems with that part of our body or we have miscarriages need that. It just does. Because it is, hey, Great Dane Mom, because it's so necessary. They are always, that's one of the things that the evangelical world is pushing on. They don't want that to be taught in medical schools. They don't want it to be an option for people. And it is a life-saving procedure for so many of us. You can retain placental fragments that can set you up and probably you bleed to death and stroke at the same time. Cindy, that is really where I was with some of mine, not stroke level or anything, but I had the bleeding that would not stop. KJ is dumb as a post if she does not know the difference between the two. Yeah, well, you said it. Some years ago, and I couldn't imagine not being given a DNC. I would have died for sure. So scary to think about. It was other medical school are so necessary for other reasons. You know, when I had my hysterectomy, because I had so many problems with that part of my body, so much hell, and my red blood cell count kept dropping. It kept tanking every month way down because I had one of those periods that wouldn't end. And they kept putting me off about having a hysterectomy. Hey, Bliss. So I finally approached my doctor and said, look, this has got to happen. My insurance company didn't even require any of the stuff they usually require because they had been having to pay for my reproductive follies all those years. I guess they finally, yeah, this woman needs a hysterectomy and rubber stamped it. So for Dear Katherine and others to be saying that this was the dreaded A word on purpose is a pile of malarkey. It just is. Nobody who's gone through a miscarriage wants to die. And that's the reality of what will happen if you have retained the products of conception. Eventually, it will poison your entire system and you will die. It needs to, that's why this procedure needs to be freely available and freely taught in medical schools, is because of that. No matter what your personal feelings are on the actual procedure being done on people who are pregnant. I have said before, and I'll stand by it, I would not personally have an abortion. It would go against everything I believe, but I don't want to tell anybody else they can't undergo one of those. Well, she didn't know, and UTI from sex, yeah, I know. So why would she know about a DNC? I had to be on progesterone several times over a nonstop period. I couldn't move or I'd pour. Oh, Raven, at least they were able to do something for you. For me, every time they put me on something or did something, it just didn't do any good. It didn't help. I was too far gone. It was just too crazy. Shelley, she's not against AB, supposedly. She is against a Duggar having one. She seems to think it's somehow hypocritical that Jessa had this procedure. So that's where it is. Who knows? But I do know that doctors and hospitals need to take women's reproductive health a lot more seriously. We end up waiting for procedures, waiting for treatments, waiting for meds, waiting for things like hysterectomies because some man somewhere says, "Well, maybe you'll regret it if you have a hysterectomy at 35." They made me wait until I was in my mid 40s for mine. I should have had it at least 10 years earlier, if not earlier than that. So that's just my rant. Don't watch her. She has the wrong information about everything, and it just blows my mind. And Cindy, since you're here, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I mispronounce Vodi's name all the time. It's pronounced like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Rock'em Sock'em Bock'em. Vodi Bockham. When I first started hearing him around the scene and reading his sermons, I pronounced him as Vadi Bacham. What do I know, kids? I lost so many jobs, and I'm glad, though. Now I have my little girl. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Raven, I know, because that's one of the struggles that I went through. Even though I had kids and I was over 30, they still didn't want to do it. They still said, well, you might have more kids. Well, then we fell into our quiverful church and I tried to have more kids. And that was a whole nonsense pile of stuff. And then when I got the actual hysterectomy, the church had a fit. The people in the church had the fit and were saying, oh, you can't do this. You got to pray for God to restore your femininity and your womanly things. And it's like, nope. And Raven, I had the same problem. I had trouble maintaining a job sometimes because of some of the conniption fits of my body. Yeah, she was no longer pregnant. She needs love. Exactly. Java Man, she said that Jessa Duggar having a DNC, Jessa Duggar Seewald, after having a miscarriage, was having the abortion thing. That was exactly the same thing as having that, which is not. A DNC, there's all kinds of reasons. I just explained there's a zillion different reasons for having a DNC. I used to get them routinely because of my excessive bleeding and my periods that would not end because of my incredibly bad um, endometriosis all the time. My mother had that after miscarriage. Yes, 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 yes. It should happen after miscarriage. So Katie Joy treated her horribly after that. Instead of, yesterday, all I could say was, I'm so sorry, because it's a big knock. It really is. Just having her was a miracle in itself. Doctor told me I couldn't have kids after IVF. Then we finally came to terms and stopped everything. And 9 years later, I found out I was praying. Woo woo! Isn't that always how it is? You solve this and just face palm. Kept scrolling. You can't argue with stupid. Yeah, between her and Michelle Goes Live, it's just been a whole lot of nonsense over the last day or two. Michelle's in the hospital for her infected toe, getting multiple rounds of antibiotics, trying to meet with a surgeon. Is just a pile of crazy there. And I just face palm on that one and roll on past while everybody else is going, oh my goodness. So Jess's video was one of the saddest I've ever seen. Rena, exactly, it was. And for KJ to do this, well, it's just horrid behavior. Everything she does is horrid behavior. She does all her most horrid behavior with the Duggars because she seems to think they won't sue. And I'm not really sure why they won't sue. Sorry, I'm being so gross today, but I like the oatmeal. He says in his cartoons that winter is when gross water rolls from the sky, and spring is when gross water rolls from his eyes and his nose. For me, that's summer and dry season here. My body goes nuts. All of YouTube is a pile of crazy. I've just been over it all. Bliss, you said a mouthful right there. I think about not doing this anymore. And then I think about how many people that come out and say crazy stuff. And I'm just like, no, this is just not good. Somebody needs to say something and try to be the voice of reason on here. For me, this was great during COVID, especially because I was inside. I was not socializing with anybody. And this was a good way to make contacts and talk to people. Now, not so much. I go out. I have Miss Murphy Brown, my cat that I call Miss Porky. I call her Murphy Brown now because she says Murp all the time. You look at her and she murps. That's just her weird little thing. She started talking all the time now, and we're kind of laughing at her. I'll go out and do all the stuff now that I didn't do. She's splitting hairs because the DNC can be done for, but you also have to use the morning after pill. Exactly. There's so much. That's why I'm here to listen today, because it gets so hard. This pregnancy business just breaks my heart. Cindy, you are right about that. She just adds piles on, but all of that is hard. Being infertile, living in quiverful is hell. Let me tell you, I lived through that. If anything started the process of me leaving quiverful, I always said the first thread got pulled out when they told me I had to repent from ever having done yoga. And I knew that my yoga teacher was a believer and would talk about Jesus in one of her books. So I knew that was a pile of horse hooey. And then the second thing was the hysterectomy, how I was treated during the hysterectomy, and then how my husband was treated for having a depression that was driven by a tumor. All of those things, I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, something's not right here. Oh God, I'm buffering. Am I buffering for everybody? Am I buffering? KJ is deplorable. The Duggar and Miss Letitia, she hustles. Okay, wanting to destroy people. She does. And that kind of blows my mind that she would do that, because why would you tear down people? People need support, and you have to be understanding. The second thing I wanted to talk about today, so many people in my quiverful church would bleed half to death after stillborns at home and miscarriages. They said they were getting the A word. It's not an A word. The baby's no longer alive. Exactly. It's not that if the baby is no longer alive. It's a life-saving medical procedure at that point. So the second thing I wanted to talk about today, which kind of ties in with the first thing and with Bodie and with all the crazy going on with John MacArthur, is the Asbury Revival. Now, I was extremely critical at first of the Asbury Revival. I had a bunch of evangelicals stomp in, stomp around, and tell me how sad and pathetic I was and what a non-believer, because I was critical of it, because like I said, I've seen and lived through so many revivals that I'd say, show me the fruit, and then we'll talk about it. But until that point, I'm just going to look at it as a time of fun, refreshing for people, but not anything really too serious. Been there, done that, gone to all the revivals. Man, I should have had the tattoos, because I would have a whole battleship chest full of tattoos to show you guys if I did one for each revival that I went to. Oh, thank you, Swan Neck. That's what's really funny about, since dry season started, I am wearing a whole lot of tops that don't touch my body because it's hot and I'm sweating. So my hair is up, my clothes don't touch my body. So the revival happened. It happened at a small college that primarily did related to the Methodist Church. I'm having a senior moment. And the guy who runs the place, Dr. Brown, let it go on for 2 weeks, okay, before he put restrictions on it, and now it's been shut down. And I have to pull up this news article and read to you a little bit why it's shut down, because I got the biggest laugh over some of this. I think that that Dr. Brown did was absolutely necessary. Why? Because it was disrupting classes. It was disrupting things for the people going to college there. I truly believe KJ is a psychopath because she 100% lacks empathy. I don't think she's capable of empathy either. So the revival. But I read an article in Christianity Today where they actually talked about the planning that went into and all the things that happened, and how the people at the church and the school just hopped in there and just did everything that needed to be done. But after 2 or 3 weeks, they're just exhausted and there's nobody to take their place. It's disrupting the school. So Dr. Brown, he shut it down. And one of the big problems with revival, if you don't shut it down, is it starts attracting celebrity revivalists. That's what I'm going to nicely call them, as celebrity revivalists. I don't know if you guys remember me talking about, okay, it was a Wesleyan church, a Wesleyan school and church, which is part of Methodism. I don't know if you remember me talking about Todd Bentley. Todd Bentley wanted to come. He was making arrangements to go, and he was hardly the only one. There were others that are considered celebrities in the revival movement that wanted to go and wanted to hitch their wagons to this and be part of it and run it in their ministries and things. And Dr. Brown said, no, we shut it all down. Todd Bentley was trying to glom onto it like he has done so many other times. There was an outpouring in Florida like 10 or 15 years ago. It was after I'd already left my church. Todd Bentley was part of that and running it and doing all this until it came right out that he'd been sleeping with an intern. And that kind of shut that down. It killed that revival. Todd was not repentant. Even his wife refused to forgive him and divorced him. Todd Bentley's full on crazy. Yes, he is, Raven. He is very nuts. Pensacola, yeah, he was at Pensacola. He was also at another one in South Florida that happened that was on for a short period of time. So he has been like revival hopping around. So he was trying to glom onto this too. So Dr. Brown, between some of the celebrities and celebrity pastors that had to do with revival, were trying to hop onto this, shut it on down. And my understanding is that revival has broken out at a pile of other colleges throughout the country, that they've started to have these revival type situations. So Dr. Brown may have felt it wasn't necessary to keep carrying on, and it was disrupting everybody's life just so much. And they did not have the infrastructure put in to handle it, because it's a small town where the school is, and they just did not have hotels, the food, anything, places for people to stay. And I know from having been to a lot of these revivals that some people just show up and they don't have plans. They don't have any plans about how they're going to feed themselves. They have no plans about where they're going to stay, nothing. They just show up. Yeah, Shelly, I just realized who you are too from reading the. So, yeah, that proves that all the apostles are frauds. That whole mess of Todd's anointing and mantle blessing, they all make you sick how many people are led astray by them. Raven, Todd was pretty much defrocked and debunked by his group of elders, and he just basically flipped the spiritual birds and kept on going. Hey, Prairie. So that's a thing. And as I've said before, revival could be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, and there needs to be fruit that comes out of it. If there's not, people's lives are changed for positive ways, more than this just having a bout of holy laughter and being relaxed, then it's really not worth a damn. So Todd, and I used to love Todd. I loved Todd's soaking CDs. I had a pile of them. Yep. So, hey, Amanda, happy Sunday to you too. So that's what's going on now with the revival. And I got to say, I'm impressed by everybody at Asbury and the whole Wesleyan thing, because they did it all respectfully. They did it respectfully. They handled people with love and care. And then when it became overwhelming, they just said, we're not doing this anymore. And I don't believe that God would send a revival to a place that couldn't handle it. Now, maybe the purpose was for a few weeks to spread elsewhere, That could be. So I'm kind of waiting. The Methodist world needed a revival. Yes, they do. They need a real one. And that was one thing that was prophesied over the Methodists. When I went from my old church to the Methodist church, there were a lot of these prophetic people that were saying the next great revival would sweep the Methodist world. And I believed that after being part of the Methodist church for a few months. I really believed it. The moment I heard him say he kicked a baby or an elderly lady, I was like, nope. Raven, for me, it was hearing rumors um, about some of the things that had gone down around him. They've been doing more of the hands and feet work. I know they've been doing more of the hands and feet work. And I love that their motto is like open hearts, open hands. Is that not how we're supposed to be? And when I was part of the Methodist Church, we did a tremendous amount of practical things to help people. Oh, yes. So there we go. All these revivals are all emotional and spiritual abuse. They manipulate the spirit with music, lighting, etc. Raven, I think there's a lot of that. I think there are some that have some genuine moments. But I think since the Azusa Street revival, there hasn't been very much going on in the revival world that's actually genuine. With Todd, it's baby bathwater thing. He does some good, but some of the stuff is just nope. Exactly. Now Bentley is a nope. He's an entire nope. And I threw his CDs away. That was one of the things I did was I crushed them up and threw them away because I can't even listen to him now. And I used to love to listen to him with the music and the scriptures and stuff and just lay back and do soaking prayer. I used to love that. And I still meditate sometimes. It's a good thing. Do the FDLS ever let women wear pants like KJ is trying to say? We're talking about Todd Bentley. I don't think so, Cheap Glass. My understanding from all the reading and the interaction I've had with the FDLS is that pants were not worn, but that before Warren Jeffs took over, they were allowed to have a greater variety of things to wear. And they may have been wearing pants under their dresses for all I know, because people were doing stuff like riding horses and working on farms and stuff. And you really can't do that well in a dress. So I think it's a solid no. Yeah, Prairie, a solid no. When you use the words Todd and Bentley, I keep thinking, oh, yeah, because she says she had two. Yeah, Nene, she is. What she did to Jessa Seewald is criminal, is my opinion. No pants in the FDLS. I remember body dodging when I was a kid from the revivals and people slain in the spirit. The Bible says even the demon's devil can quote scripture. I believe many of the top leaders are not truly saved. Raven, I've started to believe that myself because so much of this has gone down. There's a really nasty Methodist pastor here. I wish I'd get rid of her. Straight up mean girl and not pretty or cool enough to be mean to people. Yeah. I'm not sure that she lets Todd ride in the BMW either. Java Man, you're talking about Todd Paulson and Katie Joy saying that she had enough money to buy two Bentleys. Well, she's rolling around in an overpriced BMW right now, and I just laugh because shortly after we bought our car, somebody with a BMW, same model she had, pulled in next to us, and I'm looking at our car, I'm looking at their car. My car's an inexpensive little Nissan, and thinking, they're almost exactly the same size, very similar styling. So tell me who was foolish spending all that money. Yeah, she's a clown. Most definitely, she's a clown. Culturally incompetent is a good phrase. One of the reasons that I've just really taken against her is that she completely misunderstands and mangles so much of her information about the various religious subcultures, like saying that the FDLS wore pants at once upon a time. I'm not sure if the Bible says that the devil could quote scripture. I thought it did, but I found out That was the Shakespearean play, The Merchant of Venice. John, I mean, I think there's a place in there where, it talks about Jesus calling out, well, these people for not being real Christians, saying, but we did things in your name, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, but I never knew you, depart. I really think that there was scripture being said then. Yeah, he did. You're right, Raven. He quoted scripture. I forgot about that too. Culturally incompetent is a really good word. So we'll see what happens with all of this, but I'm going to continue to cover if she's going after Jessa, because like I said, the pain of losing a child that you longed for is horrific. To do it around the holidays is even worse. I hope KJ isn't going after Jessa and her miscarriages. I've lost a few babies, so that would be especially cruel, especially even for KJ. Amy, that's exactly what she's doing. She is throwing extreme shade at Jessa for getting a DNC, which, as I was talking about at the beginning, is necessary if you have had a pregnancy loss with retained anything. They have to go in there and take it out. That troll couldn't find fact or ask questions. Yeah. If she didn't burn her bridges so hard, she was less of a whole. Yeah. She's too prone to lashing out. For real. Java Man? Okay. I'm going to have to look that up. That's one of those side wrangles I got to go down. Could very well die without a DNC. I don't know, Bliss. If I had the answer to what was wrong with her, it would be a lot better for a lot of us if we understood where she's coming from. Oh, okay. So that she's just a insert phrase here. Because if you can do that for people, and I've had to do that for a lot of relatives in Louisiana, it makes it easier to deal with, because instead of being all personally offended and whatever, you're just looking at them like they have cancer or something and they can't help it. They're just not quite right. 3 times before my daughter lost another after the baby. Oh, I can't imagine that either myself. I like how she told me that my Mini Cooper isn't really a BMW. I said, well, it has BMW on it, so you better notify them if someone is using their name. Oh, Tammy, that makes me laugh because of her claims about her BMW. And like I said, I had mine right next to one of those, same model, my little Nissan crossover, and it looked almost identical. I was mad I had to pay $30,000 for mine. Now, I did get some nice extras, but still, that's a lot of money. And here you have to pay extra because of import fees and things. But I'll be damned if I'm going to pay $75,000 for a crossover. No, here we get beat to death by the roads are so horrible. But I see people rolling around in BMWs and Mercedes, and I'm like, are you nuts? I had 2 DNCs, not related to, mine are endometrial overgrowth too. I've had that. And uterine polyps with her own blood supply. Yep. She's fair game. Absolutely. There always BMW is with a single door in front. I remember those. I remember seeing pictures of those. Those were wild. The tickling of the ears is what these mega pastors are doing now. The real apostles spoke of this very I know that, and that blows my mind, Raven, that they can't see that they're the very thing they're preaching against. It's kind of mind-boggling when that happens. You're like horrified. I love my Cooper, and BMW had nothing to do with it. Absolutely. I love my Nissan. I never thought I would say that, but I do. Mercedes at least last long. Yeah, they do. That's what all the missionaries drove in Assemblies of God. Yeah, because it lasts long. This is why I'm not a Democrat anymore. They're screaming about the need for DNC for miscarriage. Yet here comes KJ coming at Jessa for doing what they demand. Want to see you next Tuesday? Absolutely. I'm not either party anymore. I'm kind of like out there independent because I'm disgusted equally with both. She should have spent 30,000 and put the rest away for son. Christine, I think she's on a this is my 11 cents rendition. And the reason I say 11 cents is because I've always loved the show Homicide Life on the Streets, and there's a robbery in there for 11 cents. So if you say my 11 cents, it kind of means my 2 cents, but we're doing it trying to be humorous. My 11 cents moment about all this is she's trying to spend as much money as possible because of the upcoming 7M lawsuit, which they change. Yeah, what are we going to do, Bliss? We're going to have to form our own party, I guess, at this point. And they just changed judges for the 7M lawsuit. I'm curious about that. I think it's probably has to do with scheduling, but the person who is gonna handle it now has worked as a prosecutor and has more of a more balanced, I think, resume than the person who was the original judge. And she says the original judge gave her journalistic privilege, no such thing. The other judge merely ruled that she possibly could be a journalistic outlet. That's a very different thing altogether. So let's see what happens, but I don't know what's going to happen. She probably should, Christine. I don't know what community property looks like in their state, though, so I don't know. This is what caused me to deconstruct my face. So I see where the Duggar girl who wrote the new book is coming from. Yes, that is Ginger, and I can see where she's coming from too. But I've gotten to the point that those things really trigger the hell out of me. I read her book once. I went through it a second time and just started. Oh, Rena, thank you. My yarn fund needs it very much so. Thank you. We need a tequila party too, I think. So I started deconstructing at the same moment that the Duggars appeared on the screen. So I was staring at them in horror because I could tell you people I knew identical in my old church. There was even a woman that looked like Michelle Duggar that had like 15 kids. Sounded like her in the little girl voice. And was just super submissive all the time and very sweet. I went to lunch with her one time and I made the mistake of throwing out some cultural references that had to do with like intellectual books and things or things I learned in college. And she just didn't know a clue what I was talking about and told me that was the devil and all this crap. I too went to the Gothard seminars, then was part of all these revivals. It breaks my heart now, but I'm doing better. Raven, that's what you have to do. Minnesota is not a community property state. Well, she should transfer everything into his name and hope he doesn't leave. Because if she transferred it all into his name, it would give him the financial wherewithal to end this nonsense and take everything. Todd, I'm calling you out. That's your way out. That is your way to protect you and your son. But I know that it will never happen. Ginger's book is truly heartbreaking. The emotional and psychological abuse she suffered under her parents and the funny way of life. Raven, I had a real hard time with the book. I read it through once quickly. And then the second time I started going through it and doing, oh, happy birthday. And, I'm stuck you for somebody else. I'm sorry. So the second time I was going through, I was making notes. I just couldn't handle it. I was feeling like I needed to throw up. She needs to keep him supplied in cupcakes. Yes, she needs to bring him. Hey, Bliss. Yeah, go ahead. Have your good day. Hope work goes well. Do they all women speak in that fake little girl voice? Not all of them. Just a certain subset that have been through the Gothard things. I was lucky. I didn't have much to do with Gothard. Very little. I did not use the Pearl method because somebody gave me a Pearl book. First month we were members of our new church, and I read it to train up a child. And I was being told by this woman and others to beat my child that had problems with her platelets. She had platelet problems, and they couldn't figure out why. So they're telling me to beat this child that you could just like push on her arm on the days her platelets were low, and up would rise a huge bruise. There was just no way I was ever going to do that. I threw the book in the trash. Angel Grace, I was mistaking you for somebody else. Happy birthday, girl. I was thinking about you this morning. But they don't all speak in that that meek, little, sweet, fake little girl voice. Just the ones that I knew that were inhaling the Gothard stuff were doing that. And it was kind of weird because my Quiverful church was full of lapsed Catholics. Almost all of us had come from the Catholic tradition and joined this non-denominational evangelical kind of church. And everybody had different ministries that they followed. A lady who was one of my closest friends, and is still one of my closest friends, she loved Jim Bakker, and she still does, and I cannot fathom it for the life of me. Because even many years ago, I thought that Jim Bakker was a giant phony. And then when everything came out about his various lovers and everything else, it was just like, oh, holy crap. It was way worse than I ever dreamed. I loved Gothard seminars when I was a kid, but I still remember I got my first, the week I was too old and had to go to the adults. It was horrible. Yep, absolutely. Bought a Gwen Chapel book. Same here. I used to be a coordinator for a way down workshop, a teacher. I taught it. I lost a ton of weight using it. And, not the weight related one. The God-Fearing Families book. I haven't read that because once I kicked it way down workshop to the curb for some of the obvious problems with the theology, I was kind of done with Gwen Shamley, but I was surprised at how emotional I was when she died. Jim Bakker, that's who my mom says is the only one who can cast the devil out of me. Cindy! What's he going to do? Cover you with that silver solution he sells and then roll you in his food buckets? If you ever want to really have a good laugh, Google on YouTube Jim Bakker food buckets taste test. Some of those are hysterical. Benny Hinn, he's another one that I've never had anything to do. I used to love Gwen. Hey, Nitwit. I just love Tammy Faye. I got the biggest kick out of her movie that came out recently, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Oh, thank you, Nitwit. Thank you. So, Angela, I think he did. I believe every word. I read her book, Tammy Faye's, and I saw how she was with gays and with others that traditionally evangelical world has no use for. And she was loving with everybody. I saw that about her. Now, she had some ridiculous things going on as far as the shopping and the makeup and the clothes and stuff, but I think she was actually pretty genuine in some important ways that most of the church lacks. A lot of the people in the remnant church are actually really great. I wish they wouldn't promote using glue sticks on the kids. I would agree with you there. Kenneth Copeland is pretty crazy. Oh, my word. Yes, he is. Some of his conferences have just made me laugh. Some of his videos for your yarn fun. Oh, you just bought some 100% nylon? Oh, scrubbies. I think that's why she wore heavy makeup. Yeah, it could be. You love her to pieces. I served her once when I was a server. She's the sweetest. She seems like she would be. I loved Jesse Duplantis until I saw him in person. Within 5 minutes, he said that if you spoke in tongues, you were going to hell. I always loved Jesse Duplantis, too. blowing COVID away. Glue sticks on kids, yes, they preached a very similar discipline theology as Michael Pearl, but they wrapped it in more loving words. They said to use glue sticks on your children. Beat your children with glue sticks to avoid leaving horrible marks. And as I said, when I joined the old church I went to, it was specifically so that, I mean, it was specifically, I was never going to do that because I had a child with that horrible stuff going on. She had ITP. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Thank you. This is my no clothes touch my body because it's hot as hell outside and I'm sweating in the house. Tammy was the first person to hold a. I know. I know she did. I admire her for that. The same thing with Princess Diana for all her faults, and then she had them like everybody else, like I do, like you do, like everybody else with all of her weirdness. She at least did a lot to destigmatize that. Oh yeah, it's brutal. ITP is a brutal disease. And I'm still worried about what will happen when that daughter starts having children because that's one of those times when it can come back and really wreck your life. How do they beat a child with a glue stick on the rear end? If you have a long glue stick, you're whacking the biscuits out of them with the glue stick on the rear end. It's just like Michael Pearl and his quarter-inch plastic plumbing line, very similar. Our pastor's wife would use makeup to cover up the bruises on her kids before they went to the doctor. Amy, I've seen that too. And I've seen that wrapped in the words discipline and tried to talk. Yeah, the long glue sticks, that's the ones. The big, long industrial ones is the one they're looking at. Oh, I'm sure Harry and Meghan are not going to the coronation. I don't think that King Charles will have them. And I don't think he should have them because they have done so much damage to the monarchy. But I'm not a big fan of the monarchy anyway. I think it's an it's something that it's an antique. It's something that doesn't apply to modern life. Diana was smoking. She was smoking hot, right? And he ran off for Camilla. The glue sticks that I encountered were tiny. That's why you probably didn't understand. You need the long industrial ones. Our parents used to make us pick our own switch. If it broke while we were hit, we got more. I used to beg to be spanked with a belt because I wore a uniform and people would see the welts. My kid gets spanked when necessary. She's little and I have to teach her to mind so I can protect her. If they're little, I can see a whack on the rear end every now and then. I've done it a couple times to my kids, like the time my toddler tried to run into a busy street. I had to reinforce that you don't do that. But anything more than that is just cruel. You try to appeal to the intellect, to the emotions of the child. Spanked is different than beat. I agree. Camilla makes me gag. She makes me just knowing that she was married to Andrew Parker Bowles and carrying on with Prince Charles does not give her any kind of credibility in my eyes. I'm not a fan of cheats. That is because of my first husband, who was a cheat and much older than me. I was thinking about him earlier in the week because one of the things he did was he took all my children by my second husband to dinner one time with their eldest sister, who was my child by him. And they came away going, how were you ever married to that man? It's like older guy, young, impressionable girl. Older guy tells you he's going to make you a star. What are you going to do? Trying to fix it before she runs in the street. Yeah, exactly. She has to come when called at home. That's a challenge at the minute. That'll get easier. Cheating is a non-starter. Charles definitely married above his class and squandered it. Yes, he did. He could have had a happy marriage, I think, with Diana, had he just been decent to her. Had he been decent to her, he might even been able to keep a side chick if that was the thing that I've never spanked my kids, but my son was spanked with a belt as a preteen maybe 3 times. Oh, I'm sure it did. Did you tell your kids that it was because he had a nice car? No, 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 no. I'm not like those people. I told them it was because he flattered me. He flattered me extremely. He saw I was in a dysfunctional home and said, "Let me take you away from all of this. Come join my band and be a star." Um, I also popped bottoms and smacked hands when they're reaching for something dangerous and no didn't work. Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. Have to go, no, 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 because my son, especially when he was coming up to toddlerhood, would run over to the radiator and try to touch it and say, hot. It's like, nope, don't do that. You're going to burn yourself. Cheating is a deal breaker. There isn't a second chance. Great Dane mom, you are absolutely right. And it is a deal breaker. And he tried to go to open marriage thing, and it was just like, no, 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 no. I like to tell the story about running away from him with a baby under one arm and a suitcase under the other. I just ran the first opportunity I got because I wasn't married to him very long for reasons. The Queen was respected and Charles is tolerated. Camilla even less. I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know if everybody's going to decide this is something that they don't need in Great Britain. I don't know. I think Charles would be happier as a country gentleman with Camilla than he would running the country. I could be wrong about that. And actually, it's mostly ceremonial. It's actually the prime minister that runs the country. I appreciate my parents, but I do look back and see where they were abusive, but the emotional and psychological abuse was way worse than physical for me. I wasn't physically abused, but my parents were extremely neglectful. I'm going to say that. I have never ever smacked any of my children's behinds. Yeah, I try to talk to them, and there's only been a few hand smacks, butt smacks, very few with my kids because I realized I wasn't doing anything but making them more defiant. My dad would talk to me for hours, giving biblical instructions. It was pure brainwashing and fear based. Yep, everything is in the House of Commons. That's exactly right, Java man. They're just ceremonial at this point. Just ceremonial. I'd like to see them turn over the palaces too back to the people, run tours, because it is a solid part of history. It's like when I was in London, one of the places that I had to go see was the Tower of London, which was also a palace at once upon a time because of all the history, good and bad there, and the crown jewels and all of that. I'm not sure what the use of the House of the Lords is either. I'm not either. That's another one I'm kind of like, yeah, no. Britain has an interesting history. If you go back and you read history books on it, I absolutely love history. So I've done a tremendous amount of reading on the whole darn thing, but I still don't totally understand the politics of the country and how it's run. Totally, I'm not okay. Palaces should be homes to mental health treatment and other benevolent endeavors. That would be a good. I think that would be a good thing too. All the House of Lords can do is delay legislation. That's about it. Did any of you watch The Crown? I know it's fictional. I know it's fictional. I watched it and I was really felt like it was probably pretty close to some of the things that actually happened. I had to stop communicating with my dad, but he was doing that biblical instruction to me as an adult. Yeah, you can't deal with that crap. It's just triggering. I heard that Andrew has a lot of dirt he's going to spill unless Charles lets him stay in Buckingham Palace. Andrew is. And it's kind of sad because he was her favorite. He was Queen Elizabeth's obvious favorite among the children. You enjoyed it? I enjoyed it too. Andrew is not a good person. They deserve. Oh, especially abuse survivors. Exactly. He could lead a trauma and mental health revolution. I would like to see that, but I don't know if it will happen. Andrew needs his backside flogged. He needs to be caned like that kid was in Singapore. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was way, way back there. It was back in the days when, oh, what was that name? Cut off her husband's willy, and all kinds of crazy things happened that year. Yeah, I think it is pretty factual. And I have heard that the youngest son, Prince Edward, would come over and watch it with the Queen once a week when it was on, that they watched it and got a kick out of it. Remind me to, uh-oh. Yeah, you should approach them. Bobbitt. That's right, John Wayne Bobbitt. Um, she worked at a med spa in Northern Virginia. My daughter and I used to go get facials from her. She had a huge booked up salon for a long time. Everybody loved her. I love Kate. She reminds me of Diana. It makes me want to puke listening to Harry. Kate Meghan is similar to Diana. That whole relationship is a sick thing between Meghan and Harry. There's a lot going on there. And I think that she may be one of those narcissists. Yeah, he doesn't cause drama. You're right. Yeah, we're showing our ages, Cindy. I remember Lorena Bobbitt because when it happened in Manassas, Virginia, where I lived for a while when we first came back to the States after Germany. And it happened not far from where I lived. I lived in an apartment there for a year while we were looking for a house to buy a house. And my father called me when it happened, and he was laughing so hard. It was like he could only get one word out between laughs. He was laughing so hard he was crying. So that's one of those memories of my father that just makes me smile. The foster care org I was trafficked by is Episcopalian affiliation. The crown needs to pull the Episcopal flag. I think so. The South Park episode about them is epic. I saw bits and pieces of that because I'm here in Costa Rica, so South Park is not much of an option. It's not one you can get here, but I saw bits and pieces on YouTube. Megan went after Harry for clout. Well, ding, obviously, she thought she was going to go ahead and she just thought that they were going to all roll over and they were going to treat her like she wanted to be treated, that she could run her stuff and keep going. Yeah, he did a top 10 on John Wayne Bobbitt. It was pretty funny. The commentary channels have shown most all of it. Well, I've seen it on the commentary channels, and I've seen most of it then. I think Harry has a lot of trauma not resolved from his mother's death. Absolutely. He's still looking for mom and having Megan who just tells him what to do. I can't believe they want to sue South Park. Yeah, I know. Parody is protected. It is a protected class of commentary, believe it or not. So they're not going to have much use. That's all I can much success, and no lawyer is going to have any use for them except to spend their money to do this foolish thing. They should put a sign in front of the hospital stating this is where two parts of John Wayne Bobbitt was reunited. Oh my goodness, Java man, that hospital, I avoided that hospital. A hospital doesn't have a great reputation, which made me laugh that that's where they put it on. He should have gone to Washington Hospital Center or Inova or anywhere that was more high tech than that place. If Scientology didn't win against SP, they won't. No, of course not, because it's a protected class of speech. They hate South Park because they're so accurate. South Park is quite accurate. It makes me laugh a few times I see it. I can't watch it around my husband though, because he flips out when he hears dirty words coming out of mouths. And it's funny because sometimes to get his attention, if I'm really serious about something and he's blowing me off, I know I have to sprinkle it with very bad, colorful vulgarities, and then he'll listen. Because if he hears the F word coming out of my mouth, he knows I am deadly serious about whatever it is I'm fussing about. And there are things that get fussed about. He has a bad habit he's had for years that he still sometimes does, where he doesn't close cabinet doors or closet doors. And short little me, I've walked into some of them giving myself black eyes and various bruises. So I've yelled at him about it and said, because you gotta close that thing. Because how hard is it to close a cabinet after you open it? It is not hard. I remember when South Park made fun of Tom Cruise and Scientology. That was so much fun. Just use the F word a few times, yeah. The toilet seat and hair for shaving gets me red. That even doesn't even bother me. I'm so used to that. South Park got us through our first year of dental school. Oh, wow. Well, you got to have something to laugh at. Recently, I'm telling on myself here. Recently, I started watching Beavis and Butthead online and just howling with laughter. Some parts of it are so incredibly funny. It's also biting satire in its own weird way. Ukraine said war needs to die because they are the largest sex trafficking network who steals girls from airports and drugs them up for men's pleasure. Aaron, I've not heard that, but that doesn't mean I don't believe you. I know there are things like that that have happened. And I'm kind of neutral in that war right now. My husband is in favor of Russia. Why, I don't know. The new Beavis and Butthead is like, I saw the new movie. That was one of the things I was able to download and watch, and it was just so funny. White privilege coming through. They're just funny. So funny. The other day I was watching one where they had gone to an army base with the hippie teacher, and they were thinking the room where the remote drone thing was a video game, and they were playing it and blowing stuff up. It was pretty funny. Harry and Meghan are just like Edward the Eighth and Wallace. Harry is still traumatized by watching his mother be chased by the photographers, but especially by watching his father let it happen. I'm in favor of no war too, Prairie. I'm in favor of sitting down and ironing out whatever is going on with them that they think that they have to go to war over. I think it's wrong. Do you remember when Billy Carter used to be on Hee Haw? He was really funny. Yes, I do remember that. Billy Carter was a hoot. He couldn't have been more different than Jimmy. Saturday Night Live was great when it first came out. Yes, I used to watch it a lot in those days. Yeah, and I think that the media is not really showing the whole truth of the war either. Billy Beer. My husband had a six pack of Billy Beer when I met him. I don't know whatever happened to that stuff, but he had a collection of beer cans and he had a six pack of Billy Beer. He started that beer can collection when he was a kid. And his parents got rid of all that stuff, I think, when they moved to St. Kitts to teach at the veterinary school there. So that stuff is all gone. But Billy was a breath of fresh air. The Carter family is an interesting one, and I am going to be extremely bummed out when Jimmy Carter passes. I've had the great good fortune to meet him a number of times. My husband is a huge Jimmy Carter fan. And so anytime we were passing through that part of the world, it was like, let's see when Jim is teaching Bible school and go to church. And we always did. Yeah, he is in hospice right now. Wanted to go visit his Sunday school class. Oh, no. And he was a respectable teacher of the Bible too, and he did not teach abusive stuff. Billy Beer was all right, but I much preferred Deeply grieved Jimmy Carter's passing. I am too, Rita. The one that got me the other day that I was seriously grieving was Richard Belzer. He'd been on Homicide: Life on the Streets for 7 long seasons. It's where he originated his role of John Law and Order SVU and a whole pile of other TV shows playing the same character. German brothers who were sibling rivalries. Uh, that happens. They seem like people, the dolls do. Jimmy has been the hands and feet. Truly, he has. Oh, that's cool too. He was. I met him a couple times. He was a nice guy. He was funny, but he was actually had a heart of gold from everything I heard about him. The only problem I ever had with Bob Dole was when he started pushing ED pills. I was like, I don't want to think about you and ED. I just don't want to. There's some people I don't want to think about doing those things, and he was one of them. It would be like if Queen Elizabeth had been advertising something that you wouldn't expect. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I'm losing air here. At least my nose has finally quit running after all this. And here's the thing, Prairie. I think until maybe recent years that we had good people on both sides of the party and parties in both parties that really wanted the good of the country to reach across the aisle for each other if they had to. I don't see that anymore. I don't see anything but a game of the scorn on each other. I'd like to see us go back to that. Okay, everybody have a great day. Thank you for watching. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell notifications. I'm going to go lay down. Love you guys.